Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production. Today we're talking about a combination thing, both a sound and a hack. Today we're talking about what to do when you want the no front head on the bass drum sound. It sounds pretty clear up front. It's in the description. The sound of the bass drum with no front head on it. It's a classic sound. There's tons of recordings that utilize this from today, going on back. Basically, when you want a punchy sound, basically no sustain. You've got low end, but it's primarily a punch, thump, funk, classic rock, that kind of thing. Right out of the gate, we run into one big problem, which I'm going to demonstrate real quick right here. Now, I'm sure you can hear as well as I can, we have some additional noise going on here. The components in the lugs are rattling. Now, not every drum is going to have this issue. Many of them do. If you've ever tried this just as a little experiment, you may have run into this issue. Even sometimes it can be the springs inside of the lugs on vintage drums like Ludwig's and stuff like that. This is an audio issue. There's also the issue of an unprotected bearing edge. Basically, it's very possible, maybe even likely, especially if you travel with your drums like this, the edges are going to get banged up. Tunability is going to be a problem. You could have real structural damage that can make the drum even unusable if you do this a lot. Secondarily, having all the lugs off, having the hoop off, losing parts is a thing that happens to us, misplacing things. If you're traveling in any way with your stuff and you do this, might lose a screw or something like that. There's just a lot of stuff that can be problematic with this method. However, the sound is rad once you get it dialed in and once you get a little bit of control over it. Now, there are a few products on the market that exist that sort of cater to this particular situation that you can buy if you want to. The first one is some kind of mesh front head. Basically, this functions as a head, but it's not plastic. Basically, it's porous. It's a mesh. It's like fabric. So all the air rushes through it and leaves the drum, basically getting you the sound of no front head with the security of something on there, both to secure your hardware, your hoop, and also to keep your muffling in place if you have muffling inside of the drum. Evans makes this particular kind of head called a retro screen. They don't make it in a 24, unfortunately. They go up to a 22. But we managed to get a sound off head, which is meant as a quiet practice batter, but it's functionally the same. It's the same material. The pros, obviously, as I said, your edges are protected, all your hardware is on, it looks nice, it looks professional, it holds your muffling in place. It's super great, especially if your muffling is secure with Velcro like these EQ pads are. Now, on the other hand, we can't reach a mic inside of the drum. We can't really adjust anything other than essentially miking at the distance of an external mic, which, there's some sound issues or possibilities there if you wanted to make adjustments. Also, we don't have access to the muffling or anything inside of the drum anymore at all. And if you want to be making adjustments, especially in a recording situation, this is kind of problematic because taking the front head off to adjust something every time and then putting it back on, laborious, takes time, even if you have a drill like we do for doing it. So, enter the DIY option. Take one of a brand new one if you want, but an old batter head that has a ring around the edge, an EQ3, EQ4, those kinds of things. We're actually going to remove the head and just leave the muffling ring around. Basically, it's an excellent solution. So we have two of these heads that we cut centers out of when we were doing center cut heads a few weeks back. And since we don't need two of them knocking around, we're going to use one of these for this purpose. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut from the center of the head to the edge, being very careful not to actually slice the muffling ring behind the batter portion of the head. Once I get to the edge, I'm going to reach around the back and I'm going to hold on to and pull away the muffling portion of the head so that I can just slide the knife around the edge of the head using the collar as a guide. You're going to just get a nice smooth cut around, and the muffling ring is going to keep the blade level. So this is going to end up looking super professional, and once you get the hoop and all of the hardware on, you're not really going to be able to see that there was ever any kind of anything there except for the muffling portion. All right, here we are. Now we have a head on the front of the drum that basically has 2 to 3 inches of 10 mil clear mylar around the edge and nothing else. This edge on the inside was cut at the factory because the factory cut the muffling part, so it looks great, it goes on the drum super nice, and now we have this enormous window in the front of the drum to mess around with miking, maybe even several mics. I mean, there's plenty of room. We can move muffling in and out. We can adjust the muffling that we're using. It's basically like the easy access version of this whole thing, and it is absolutely protecting the edge of the drum. All of everything is tensioned up as you normally would, but it's really not contributing anything to the sound of the drum. So we're getting this pure kind of no front head vibration. Now for me, this is the direction I would go because I'm always trying to just like do the easiest, fastest with the thing that I have already at home. Similarly, again, to how we did center ports the other day. This is also a thing that isn't really orderable from a company. If you ask for a head that has a 22-inch center cut or a 20-inch center cut, that's not really a thing that they sell like a Guitar Center or whatever. But on the flip side, when you're through with your batter head, if you happen to use an EQ4 or something of that nature, this is a second life for that head. I guarantee I'm going to make one of these as soon as I get home because I do have a beat-up batter head at home. There are lots of examples of this in classic rock and also in a lot of recording studio photos and videos and things where they're really just trying to get a controlled sound with just punch and oomph for anything from disco. Again, like I've mentioned, Steve Gadd would do a fairly big center port, maybe not this big, but this is one that, I mean, it took us literally like 2 minutes to do this. So it's going to take you longer to put the head on the drum than to make this, basically. Just make sure, be careful, always cut away from yourself, use a really sharp knife, and I'm very curious to see if this ends up being a thing that people want to use for this purpose, because this is something that I've been trying to imagine a solution for a really long time. All right, let's hear a little bit more from this iteration in context. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for an immediate, very clear, very articulate kind of bass drum sound, especially if you use a larger drum like this where it's already making quite a bit of low end without a reso head on it, this is an excellent solution. It also feels really good, and this was also, again, a thing with the center cut head. It feels really good to bury the beater. So if you play that way, or if that's a move that you do for emphasis at times, you're not going to get a lot of buzzing of the beater on the bass drum pedal and all that kind of stuff. It's very pleasant to play fast on. It feels very articulate, and the attack is ridiculous, especially if you're doing like busy stuff between the toms and the kick. It's fantastic. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you hear about all of our new videos. Lots of videos coming out every week right now. We have these still tutorials on Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please head over to the Patreon. Check it out. See if you want to help out over there. There's going to be extra content from this on there as well. It's really keeping us going here. It's keeping the channel going. We're excited about it. Lots of exclusive content over there. And lastly, let us know in the comments if this is a sound that you use and what sort of solutions you have for basically protecting your drum. If you're doing it at home, or if you're doing like a home studio kind of thing where the drum never leaves, I could imagine just leaving it alone. I've even seen people take all the lug hardware off so that it doesn't buzz. But we're super curious because this is definitely the best solution that I've come up with for it, and I'm super excited to put it to work.